Okay, so I still haven't replaced the thermal paste on my CPU, so we'll see if this plays a little nicer than Helldivers. Although the frames are already starting to drop. Should be fine-ish. Anyway, biggest point of this was just getting the builds on camera. Oh, it does not like that. Great, let's try this. It so does not like this. Whatever. We'll just suffer through it for the sake of getting it done, getting it on video. But basically, plan is to just go through essentially all the builds. I honestly did not have the foresight to check out my last post to see how many builds have actually changed since then, but we'll just go through what I have, where they're at, future plans, and that way I can actually delete some and free them up. So to begin with, due to the no crafting cost event that happened for 1 week and then again on another week, I have my slots maxed out. In addition to having my slots maxed out, I have them all filled. So the easiest way to do this is probably just going to be through the exhibition first. So to start with, my submission for the 5th contest in the Snowman Marathon, which was to build a large weapon. So I built a Annihilator, which you can see in the back with its tail folded up, but large. My original intention had been to include the buffer around the rotors and then the cage and the launcher, but I couldn't do that with the total part limit of 80, and moving over to the Leviathan slot would have helped a lot because you get an extra 100 parts or so, but you can't actually have rotors on Leviathans. So I just kind of called it what it is. As per usual, try to make it a somewhat viable build. I knew pretty much from the start of this contest I wanted to make the Annihilator. Like, I had a couple of other ideas on other weapons that would be cool to make, but then I'm like, well, they're popular enough weapons that other people are almost guaranteed to do them. So I considered, drones aren't super popular in general, especially Annihilators. I don't see very many of them nowadays, and I know that I could make a upsized version pretty straightforward due to that shape almost exactly matching the front shape of the Pilgrim, and then having a Tesla emitter attached to the underside in place of the camera or sensor, whatever it is. So I did almost give up like 3 different times with building it though. So this top side angled part was rough because we can't actually make triangles, never mind like a series of them as panels. But that was also the same issue I had with the underside, and I kind of just sent it at the end with like what generally fits the look, and then this side, I don't even know what it is supposed to be functionally. I'm going to call it a vent, even though it's most likely not. The like part around it, whether it be a guard or a aerodynamics thing, I don't know what, but those gave me issues. And then once I got down to the base, I was running out of parts, so I just simplified that up a bit. In any case, it was enough so that I won the competition, or rather was one of the winners of the competition, so very happy with the results. I kind of knew from the get-go that I wanted to do this sort of configuration with the quote-unquote needle or barb, or however you want to refer to it, with the, I think they're called Kuwagatas. Kusazuri. Because, I mean, like, you'd have very few parts that are kind of off-center of squares, and then a 4x4. These fit pretty well. I've used them probably on the last, like, say I've done 6 art builds since the last competition for Halloween, and I think I have them on 3 of them. So I've been definitely getting mileage out of them, which is great because they're running boards, and they're the only 6x1x1 part we have other than the catch bumper, but this actually has like decent connection pins. It almost is a 0 height piece, and it's not very strong, so I don't use it on a whole lot of functional builds, but I've been getting my mileage out of it in the art builds. So because they're trying to make it functional, I was looking at maybe doing like a gas gen or using multiple fuel tanks, but I just ended up with this having a fuel tank, fuel barrel, and a Genesis, which worked for the function of the build, even though it's obviously not very wise to have them just slapped onto the front. The bottom part is just me running out of parts, so I went with the general feel of it with the approximately same length compared to the length of that part on the drone. But again, they were literally the last thing I did. So as far as this, I knew that's a lot of drop frames. Lamo. I don't know if I'd say I knew per se. I had a pretty strong suspicion from the get-go. Oh, thanks, XPlexApp. Very cool. Okay, at least that clears up the drop frames, Lamo. Had a pretty good idea from the get-go that I would use these to be the front top vent, because I knew that I wanted to make it about 6 wide so I could get the overall like slope around it shape, which would also be roughly flush with the, roughly the same width as the front angled part of the cabin or the drone in the case of the actual drone. So I messed around with a few different ideas. This is what I ended up with, and this is kind of how I smoothed the entire top over. I had experimented with a couple of different ideas, but this looked the most decent. It kind of gave the even if it wasn't a specific 1-to-1 match of the drone itself, it gave the same overall aesthetic of a curved angled look. Sorry, not a curved, but a kind of curved, like an angled convex shape. So that's what I ended up going with for it. I did try using like the Socorro or using the Saya or using panel arcs to wrap around it, stuff like that, but I couldn't find a better looking result than this, so that's just what I stuck with. The top was actually super easy to do because I could just use 4x wide parts, and then again with the approximate length being equivalent to the drone, I knew that I wanted a fairly sharp slope at the back, which luckily we had cast parts for, and I ended up doing a, again, okay-ish job. We don't have a whole lot of 6x2x1 parts that, are curved in multiple directions, but I think it worked out okay. The Manica was a bit of inspiration of this back part here, the panel, not the one covered in red, but like this yellow two-parter looking roughly the same. So I kind of just put it on, and I'm like, you know what, this is like decent enough that, again, even though it's not perfect, it works. And I mean, replicating that shape with other parts would have been a heck of a lot more painful. So after that, I knew I wanted a super thin back tail. So I went with the catch bumpers horizontally because it's another part that looks like, if you were to scale it up, it's effectively 0 width. 0 height. It's like just the thinnest part you can put on, and of course I don't have a whole bunch of these, so I figured that would work okay. Made the tail, decided to not have the tail folded up. I did originally with the van windows, but on top of this being at an angle which I can't replicate, and the part limit, and it being flat, so it wasn't super obvious, I just decided to have it extended, and then obviously we have the shape of that panel fairly nicely with the narrow wing. afterwards, I played around with the bottom placement a bit, trying to make it, like I said, effective, but like fitting the style of it. So I ended up sneaking my car jack down there. And then wrapping the quote-unquote mount for the flash weapon using the cuck parts, which I honestly don't think I've used since the last video where I explained why I called them the cuck parts. But that fit the shape of that little pincer guy quite well, methinks. I did poke around with the idea of having the flash vertically so that it had the same like positioning as this, with the ball mounted like technically at the back rather than at the top. But then you can't actually aim forward with it too well, and this honestly looks like the ball more than it from the top looks like, or even the spark with or without the CK. So I just kind of sent it as is. This was the other pain point. I knew that this shape and this shape were exactly what I wanted to mirror that hook at the top and then that part at the bottom. But getting the other like 3 parts here to look like kind of decent was a lot of trial and error, and there's actually a 4th one because I have a couple of these guys kind of sticking in on the plus side because it's attached there. It actually holds the rest of this on, since not all of it is actually attached to things due to where the points are. And then this was pretty much the only piece I could actually fit in there. I did want to have it rotated vertically so that the flat part was at the top and then it angled down to the point here, but it just literally doesn't fit due to the lip of the fender. So again, it was just sort of like, this is the closest I could get, and I submitted, and obviously they liked it enough to select it as a winner, which is pretty neat. But yeah, it was definitely one of the more painful art builds, but I'm glad I did do it. I mean, I'm obviously glad that it won as well, but yeah, it was a bit of a hassle. And I'm also kind of glad that I couldn't really do the cage anyway. Like the mount, the buffer thing, or sorry, the launcher itself wouldn't have been much of an issue, I don't think, but trying to get a curve in the game to begin with sucks. Doing it this large and this tall, so it would have ended up having to be 4 pips tall to go from the bottom rotor to the top, and also having very limited options for attach points would have really sucked. So I did start making it with using the strut parts, a bunch of them, like I think it was 12 of the 14 you have in your inventory for those supports. But yeah, I ran into the part limit, and then I ran into the Leviathan can't have a rotor issue, and I'm like, well, fuck it, we'll just send it as is. So that's that. It's also technically, I guess, the most recent build I did, but it's that. This was for, the name implies, for Christmas hunt. This was my first attempt running 3 whirlwinds. So whirlwinds and Catalina have always been the answer for these sort of events. So this is what I sent it with to begin with, but then it became obvious that it also scaled with power score. I mentioned before, I don't even know how it did, because it doesn't seem to increase the enemy count, make them smarter, or make them or like give them more damage or anything. But there is definitely an extremely discernible difference between running 13k and running 6k. So this kind of got tossed out, but it was like, I thought it looked decent enough. I'm not too much a fan about this gap here, but it was just kind of a necessity because I have the whirlwinds attached to both the cabin directly, that little nub, and the jacky. So there's not really a whole lot of other places I could have put it, but it almost lines up, but it doesn't. But if it did, that'd be cool. And then I also want it to go up 1 pip so that the fenders also lined up, but it didn't. But again, like, this is a close enough approximation to a like decent looking helicopter that I want to keep it, so I just threw it on exhibition. But it'll probably end up getting deleted pretty swiftly here due to the nature of the lack of slots due to doing, you know, like 5 different art build competitions within a 2-week period on top of these event only builds. So I'll probably end up deleting this one. I mean, I have it in the video now, so I can always just reference it again later if need be. But I mean, I had mentioned before, it was effective, as you know, it tends to be, but it's also like just RSI bait, because you're just like tapping every half second for 10 to 12 minutes at a time. And also randos are bad and generally don't even get you very far in the event. So I ended up in top 1,000 for completing the Wave 15 boss like once, but I couldn't get a group together, at least not enough people interested enough, fast enough to get it done for the top 100 placements. But, c'est la vie. In any case, I didn't use this build for it, even though, again, it feels fairly viable. Like, you could probably bring this into PvP and do decent, honestly. But, yeah, I think that'll be banished. I think for Leviathans, nothing new here. Yeah, not that I haven't already talked about. And then for the other exhibition builds, my pumpkin from the Halloween contest, which still got a disgusting amount of likes and downloads, like a ridiculous percentage of my totals, or just from that. Didn't even win that competition either. I thought it was pretty good. But I also did the other snowman competition with flamethrowers and the blight again, and they also didn't like that, so maybe they're just sick of me running the friggin' flamethrower build from my art builds into the competitions. In any case, that one I'm going to keep up, because it was super tough getting all these friggin' fenders to line up well, and this is literally the first time I've used any of these fenders for building, so I'm going to be very stubborn and keep that up at least. Alright, let's see. Oh, that's interesting. If you view blueprints, it shows all of them at once rather than in the different categories. That's good to know. Great. So we'll have some repeats, but that's fine. This was from Meepinator69 from the Reddit. Although that's not their username on the Reddit. It's Meepinator is their Xbox name. I don't remember what it is on the Reddit. But in any case, kind of outdated now. At least it hasn't really been broken by the energy changes or the like mass changes, cabin nerfs, whatnot. So it's fine as is, but in theory, to like throw on extra damage, you'd probably want to, you know, swap out the weapons for fused version, maybe swap out the trombone for an actual engine, swap out the generator and then get a Cyclops, but not anything of a big enough deal for me to bother with like prioritizing it. And as you can see, I've had a lot of things change analog wise, but I mean, it's all just different upgrades, so at least none of those interfere with it. This is, funny enough, the older version of, oh, I guess I'm scrolling for a bit. Oh, it's because it's sorting by likes right now. Well, anyway, there's another version, a newer version. This is the update 17 version, which I thought looked a lot sleeker overall, and was running the Avalanche. Again, not necessarily a effective build, but my attempts at making one nonetheless, and making primarily for a art and for combining the different items together for the sake of showing the combination more than anything else. But the older version having more likes also makes sense because it's been up for longer, except they both were at the same amount of likes for a while, and then this one I guess just got more popular because more people were looking for cohort Reaper builds or something. I don't know. In any case, this will eventually maybe be reworked. I had the Devourers for a while, and honestly I know that they're like oppressively present in Clan Wars according to people on the Reddit, but like I don't do Clan Wars, and I didn't really like the Devourer, and I was only running a single one at 10k, so I didn't even find that it was like super powerful or anything. So I got rid of them. Maybe with the Reaper buff I'll use them again. I don't know. Primarily I was using this and the other variant in raids anyway, because again, having top mounted exposed weaponry doesn't tend to be too good in PvP. And with the speed and DPS meta, they aren't good choices either. But again, another thing maybe I'll revisit, or if they make the devour like an actual continuation of the Reaper line rather than sort of its own thing. Maybe, I don't know, sort of eventually might get around to it thing. This was for a clan art build, or clan art competition, which I've talked about before, and probably deleted. Oh, I totally left an extra piece on there by accident. Whoopsie. Anyway, probably delete it, but having a Cyclops in a little monster truck is always fun. This is a super old build I need to redo. Pretty much everything about this build has changed, including my upgrades for the carapace. Like, I have a different one because they changed all the upgrades, which means these ones aren't going to be good. But sort of a, like, it's an art build, it doesn't need immediate update sort of thing. And there haven't really been a whole lot of other parts that have been added that sort of fit its aesthetic that I'd swap out. Fury is the like World War I-ish equivalent version, significantly worse again, especially because now the carapace cabin buffs the elephant but not the tacklers, so eventually it will maybe get around updating as well. Lamau. This is a art build I've had for since whenever the legs came out, so probably like 2-3 months. And I was just sitting on like doing a different paint job and slapping on some more stickers, but it's essentially Helldivers 2 Factory Strider. And I was like, oh, I'll get around to it. And then I didn't. And then they nerfed the Raijin, have changed a few parameters on other things on the build, and I just said, fuck it, I'll send it and throw it on Expedition. So pretty straightforward. I did have a variant with a Mars cabin, and I did originally have some other equipment on this back when they had the lower energy cost and higher ammo on the Raijin, but in any case they don't anymore. So as far as clever things for this, love how the panel arcs wrap around them. Hate how we only have 2 of these, whatever they're called, impact bumper, shock absorber, because they fit perfectly on the panel arcs, and I only have 2 of them, so I can't even throw them on the shoulders too. Also, the actual limbs on the actual Factory Strider are connected up here, so this is my attempt at like pseudoing that with the cast parts, but I mean, of course it's attached at frame level. And we're running the cohort cabin, so the armor like is just as tall, as wide, and as long as it, but it worked, and it actually gave me the mass limit to justify using 4 dino legs, because what's the point otherwise? And then I have this fake face, which I thought was pretty clever, a good use of the Horo. We also have the little light, even though in the game again it's a point light and it's orange, and these would be miniguns, but it worked, and again I was using him in raids, so I didn't want to have to make a Leviathan out of it, which would have been really overkill for pretty much anything else other than throwing the miniguns on. I didn't want to replace the cannon on the back. And then as far as just like the interesting things worth noting, I have the Jackie connected to the Raijin, since the Raijin is one of the few weapons that actually has pips on the side and back rather than just on the bottom. I have the Pegasus and some other hardware, so you can see the Cyclops, the Doppler, and the ammo pack down underneath in the belly. And I have a fucking freight train plow vertically, sorry, not vertically in this version, but it was vertically originally, inside to try and soak up some of the damage to protect the Jackie from the front, since again I'm fighting against bots with this, and like theoretically I could just turn around and like block with the cabin a bit, but for the most part, especially when I'm walking forward and, you know, pretending to be a Factory Strider, a lot of damage comes from the front, blows these off, and then obviously the gun mounts themselves don't have too much durability. So I do have the freight train plow also mounted to the frames of the build with that, but if that gets shot off and, you know, the gun mounts get shot off, then the freight train plow tends to come off. But again, part limit, mass limit, etc., it works. This is super old, made for somebody else, will maybe be reworked. I mean, the combo itself is, especially millers have gotten several nerfs, so I don't expect I'll be going over that again anytime soon, but like it's a concept I do want to revisit in the future again, and has been touched by energy and reworks and whatnot. But again, primarily a raid build made for somebody else who doesn't play anymore, so makes that difficult. This is, funny enough, there was an adapter conversation on the Reddit the other day, but just a semi-deprecated build from literally before the hover changes. Now, I actually have the hovers because I was without them for like, I don't know, a year-long period. Now that they're actually cheap again, I picked up some more. But now I don't have adapters, and to be fair, those are cheap too, and I should probably put some offers in. But I have not yet, so that's right, we can fix that right now, I guess. There you go, maybe I can re-upload this build. I did make a like smaller version earlier, like a 9K version, but that's since been sort of replaced with the double fat man track variant. And I honestly don't really know if I'd even bother keeping this because I haven't used it for anything since. And then there's ammo changes and energy changes and whatnot. But the base of it's decent enough. And I mean, as an 8 hover build with, you know, fenders protecting them, it worked decently enough. But just sort of another older build. This, same thing as the Miller Mac, needs to be completely redone though, because of the changes to the machinist cabin, which I also sold because people were buying them for like 8,000 and I got them for significantly less than that. So I have to wait for the price to go back down, and then I'll look at rebuilding it with maybe a different engine. Might go with the Pegasus, might stick with the Colossus. We'll see what ends up happening as far as what I have for the cabin and its upgrade, and what we have for engines and the ML200, and if they're actually good or not. But again, primarily an art build. I also still don't have Vindicators because they're bad and they're not worth like 4,000 coin a piece. So I'm not going to drop 16,000, like half a relic worth of money on those when they're bad. This is literally just my Firebug build that I took the Firebugs off and threw it on exhibition when I sold the Firebug. So if and when I get back to completing that trial when the Firebug price goes down, which seems unlikely with the current buffs planned, then I will keep using that. But I thought it was pretty clever what I did with the little Foggy in the front, even though it's not very high durability. It's as high of a durability for a mount I could manage for a 1 pip high area, and it worked out pretty well. I mean, I know like there's lots to hate on with the flame dogs especially, and with like dog builds and the jaws and whatnot, but I thought I did a pretty damn good job of doing the jaws. Like, they don't even interfere with firing straight up or straight down. So, well, not straight up, but as high as the gun elevation and as low as the gun depression allows. So this one I'm pretty proud of, and will, like I said, probably get back to using again if and when I get the weapons. This is another contest build submission, which I did not win for, but I thought was pretty fucking good, and I could use as a base for other, like, approximate dimensions of the same, right? Like, if I were to do another competition for another person or face or build a thing, whatever, I needed a head dimension thing. I thought this would be a pretty good base for that. This was old build. This used to be my daily patrol runner, but then they changed a few things, and so I'm not running anymore. It was honestly, it overperformed pretty heavily when I was running it in PvP, but I don't really have a use to do so nowadays. So depending on how uranium works in the future, again, it might bring it back up. I've just been sticking with the same build the entire time. This is the mini version of the repeater, so the hover. This is a variant. This is also, again, before the energy changes, a good like starter build. I guess it still is, to be fair, but the Fat Man meta has been a thing which has made for a lot of other builds which are probably a lot more effective than this, whereas this was kind of just something I threw together for somebody as an example. And I honestly don't know how well it would perform in the modern state of things, because it's not very fast, it's not super tanky for the power score, and it doesn't exactly throw out a whole lot of damage or have the weapons very well protected. But again, it works it looks decent, and probably again revisit it if I need another Echo platform base. This is one of the Clan Leader's bang shields, a variant of his version. So this is designed to be a Ravager based version as opposed to the regular Whirl version. So again, don't really use them outside of raids. Don't really have any updates for them other than obviously I could add the new CK for the Whirl, but I did not buy the deluxe pack for that because I'm not spending like $50 on one CK. And it's also legendary, which is weird because they explicitly went and they changed the tier of every other CK so that it would match the tier of the weapon, and so the price in the CK shop would be equivalent. And then they went and they released the quote-unquote legendary CK for this, as well as for the Omni box, and there's something else. It might have been the Froggy, I forget. Maybe not. Anyway, I know there's like 3 different things they fucked up with it, but in any case, don't really have any plans on updating. Don't even know what I really would update on them, because there haven't been a whole lot of like new parts that are like fitting the Ravager aesthetic that do a better job for this build specifically. Theoretically, you'd swap out the seal and the shiver for kilos, but shrug. Also, the Caucasus don't seem to be in a very good place right now due to, I thought they were supposed to make them like keep them hit scan since they were automated weaponry, but then they made them projectile, and they changed the range of fire upgrade, which is kind of a big deal on something with a limited range of fire for lock-on, to projectile speed. So I don't know what to make of that. This is the one I did the Mastodon trial with. I don't know. I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say about it. It ended up being grossly effective compared to the other more like traditional configurations, just because going fast and firing a big gun worked. But I mean, a few of the clan members have found that to be increasingly so the case in Uranium, so maybe I shouldn't be surprised. But I imagine this will probably also be deleted because it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing super big or exciting that I did with this. It's kind of just a little brick thrown together, but we'll see. This is straight up a meme build from like 3 years ago, which could be updated to be even more memey, I guess. But again, raids, not really using anything. This was the like heaviest, not literally the highest mass limit due to not running the Pegasus or Colossus. Well, the Pegasus wasn't even an option when this was out, but not running the Colossus. But, well, or the Eagle, but of course it went with the Sabbaths. But now that I have the Jawbreaker, and then the Factory Strider, and then the Atlas couple builds, so this isn't really as big or as important of a thing anymore, so I'll probably end up deleting that as well. But again, don't really have better options for the armoring of it. I mean, I do technically have all upgraded Sabbath wheels now, but I also don't really run raids, so I don't have much need for this. That we talked about. This is the bane of my existence because I still don't have the klaxon horn. They don't give me enough paratrooper containers to get the horn, and they also require you to do an event. During the event, you get the challenge done, get the container, open it, and then hopefully get it. And so far I haven't had any luck with it. There's only been like 6 opportunities in the last 4.5 fucking years since I uploaded this. But this one I definitely keep because it was one of, if not literally the first art build I posted and put up on the Reddit. I can at least use the fuselage slopes now for the top, which is nice. But again, without the klaxon horn, is there really a point in me re-uploading this? I think not. There's that. This was the other competition. I thought this was pretty damn good. Didn't win with this one either, but it's Frosty, or I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be any specific, but it's a snowman with a carrot nose and a corn cob pipe. Got a hat on, and I thought it was pretty clever. They got a little scarf on. They got their little twig arms, and then it needed to be weaponized, so I made the buttons flamethrowers. But yeah, again, maybe they just don't like flamethrowers or something. I don't know. So that one will probably be taken down. I don't know, I'll give it another couple of weeks while it's still in season or something, but again, not anything too crazy. That, and I talked about that at length in other videos. Talked about that another length. We'll say I don't even use this, so I might end up just deleting it. But I don't have a whole lot of like traditional brick or like almost any shotgun builds, so I thought this was a decent enough base to work off of if I needed to in the future, but literally don't even have hammer falls right now. This I was going to change out for the Mastodon, but then I had a super bad time with a single Mastodon and a single Mammoth, so I made that other smaller car, and I haven't really had any reason to go back to this, and I already have the other double Mammoth build if I wanted to just pour on damage. So, shrug. This would, I mean, technically it's getting buffed in the next update for the Reapers, but again, I don't really use this. I used it in the Impulsiveness Brawl and it was decent, but like I just don't run anything in super high power score. So a lot of these are sort of prototype / proof of concept for like specific combinations. So in this case it was having a Omamori wrap around the Bastion cabin and also attach the guns. On the other hand, this means that obviously the Omamori blows up super quickly, but in the meantime my cabin has upwards of 80% damage reduction, and then also has the Aegis to theoretically protect the Omamori while it's popped. And then I also have the freight train plow on the front attached to, it was originally Rift, so I guess with this version I got rid of it, but it was, yeah, literally where you could drop the front train plow and then it would get rid of all the under stuff as well. So I'd lose the generator, which obviously prevents both of the guns from firing at the same time, but I would get rid of the ammo and the generator, all the explodey stuff. And then I also thought this was like a decent enough sort of brick-ish format with the 8 spider legs, and then using the snow plows as gun mounts again. This is another sort of proof of concept build. I think I've literally never even run this. I know when I worked on the King trial, I just did it with the Harpy because it was a hell of a lot easier. This was before the Omamori or even the Ermac was out. But it's an interesting enough idea, and it's technically Clan Con capable. Just, you know, not super viable with the way the meta's been for the last, 2.5 years. This is the other variant of the Monsters truck, which is, again, just a monster truck with a lot more swag since I didn't have to construct a friggin' Cyclops on top of it. And also running the Tachis in between the harvesters, which I thought was pretty neat. But man, just an art build for a clan competition, which will probably be taken down as well. That same thing, super old build for somebody, then they kind of bunked it with the energy changes, so not very usable. But in any case, it was just designed to be a beast for something like perimeter breach in raids, where you'd be able to slow down and catch enemies, which used to synergize better with the harvester, but then they changed the perks, so theoretically you don't even need the zip zap anymore. But I like the idea of it, and then having the Skinner, which is of course currently disabled, and could be used as a couple build because, I mean, like, I'm not even using most of the armored part of the Goliath tracks themselves, and it definitely is bad otherwise against things other than bots. This is a more modern, I mean, you can see it's update 14, so also super old at this point, but another version of a fusion build with the other person who doesn't play Crossout anymore. But I kept it because, like, bro, it's a school bus. And if they end up making a school bus build, better believe I'm making that other coupled part again and resubmitting it. This is one of the projects that I was waiting on to finally get my hovers back, to update it so it doesn't look absolutely god-awful now that hovers are not 7 pins long, and therefore I can hide them on the inside without having to use things with half a pip of depth. But alas, I no longer have the machinist either, so that's going to be continuing to wait for a while. And then there's that, which I already talked about, which I guess is the last one there. Great, okay. So those are all the ones on Exhibition. And then we can go through these. And then I can free up a bunch of these slots to work on other things and then do other videos about them. Have fun. So, yeah, this I've talked about at length. Currently don't have elephants because, again, people were willing to pay way too much to upgrade them with the event. And don't get me wrong, like, I like elephants. They're literally, I think, the oldest pair of cannons I own, possibly the oldest thing in my inventory. But, yeah, when people were paying $3,000 for them, I totally sold them. Was like, great, I'll just pick them up when they're cheaper. It was an ideal fusion, though, but I also wasn't going to pay $3,000 and lose out on selling things for $3,000. This needs another update. I don't know. I don't really like the Lucifers on it, which is a shame because I explicitly got a second Lucifer for it, but you can't mount the swarms upside down, so might have to, again, revisit in the future. This is sort of an experimental anti-levy build. Worked decent. I kind of want to rejig it a little bit. I have the backwards facing version as well, but I will say it is absolutely terrible, even though you get the quote-unquote shields of the atom wheels. And this does let me run it all backwards, and so I can have the cabin at the back and thus protect the modules by putting it between the cabin and the weaponry, which is something you cannot do very well with it forward facing. But the speed absolutely gets it killed. And if you want tanky wheels, you're probably better off just going with the Titans, which is a popular pick anyway. So this one's definitely going to be scrapped, but wanted to, again, kind of showcase it because I liked how I was able to wrap the Bartizan, the Montefortino, and the heavy fenders around the atom wheels and have a reverse super debuff, theoretically super tanky, but doesn't last long enough in levies for it to really matter build. But yeah, I mean, when almost all the levies go like 100 kph and this thing goes, you know, 2/3 of that if you accelerate to max, it doesn't perform too well. I will probably keep poking around at this version. In fact, I guess theoretically we could load it and then run a raid if there's even anybody running levies right now just to showcase it, but might be better in Clan Wars theoretically, might be better in the Chase raid theoretically, but that would require those things being available and doing them with others, and that's not generally the case. Like I said, this super needs updates, but also I need to wait until I get a mass limit at Yokozuna because they nerfed my baby, and I had not gotten that upgrade yet, despite sinking like 7 fucking Yokozunas into making them while we had the cheaper event twice, and I still don't have it. I think I currently have another, yeah, see, so I have a Dura Speed Power, which is pretty fucking close, but still not it, and then theoretically I might want a Mass Power for other build anyway, so shrug. But in any case, yeah, energy changes, mass changes. It's very old again, update 14, so I'll need to redo it. I don't know if I'm going to swap out the snowfalls. Theoretically, I could run 3, but I'd have to strip out a lot of other functionality. I could make it more wedge-based. Maybe add a Skinner, put vertical tachis or something. I don't know. Haven't really decided on it yet. But, I mean, it's also gotten, like, what, 7 consecutive speed nerfs? With all the changes to the Yokozuna and the Sabbath and the buggy and the cabin and the co-driver. So, yeah, the hitting 120 with the Yokozuna days are over, at least for the time being. And again, I was mostly just running that in like perimeter defense to just ram through the entire map. So, alright, hopefully I'm not the highest power score here by a large margin. Great. Which means I should not have to carry, and therefore when this build fails horribly at dealing damage, be a problem for the team. But I also don't really run levies at the moment. Basically, we've just been doing like the daily patrol stuff, do events, hop off, do other things. So, it hasn't been a whole lot of continued experimentation with the build, but it is, again, something possibly to revisit. I like the idea enough of, hey, what if your cabin had your build in general had a shit ton of damage resistance, and you had decreased damage output, and you also decreased the DPS, the flash. Like, that's a lot of damage reduction if you can get them working. And levies are pretty much the only place where you actually have a chance of pulling that off with the damage output and actually needing that. So, no, I don't want to get, I'm not cloaked right now, teammate, no. Press problematic when we have multiple people trying to do the same thing, but at least that dude's doing damage with the Akari. I'm just here to, like, hopefully keep the team alive, but can't even really do that when they decide to walk in front of it. And that's all of its guns. Also not super sold on the Finwell engine, because of course I gotta keep speed in order to do that, and lo and behold, enemies, especially enemy levies, don't want to let me do that. But again, more damage reduction, damage protection. Specifically for the guns, which you know are on the front and thus the closest thing towards the enemies a lot of the time. I've also seen a couple of other configurations of like a similar idea. Like having, or there was like, I had an experimental one for like 3 rooms ago where I had all the weapons at the back and they like shot around the cabin. That was mostly just because of the grizzly changes, which required you to have the cabin get damaged for the effect, which is not a factor anymore. So this seems like a easier option, certainly an easier way to attack things without needing specific lineups, but it's hardly a sure thing anyway. And yeah, obviously doesn't perform super well on the damage side of things, which is general. I mean, everything in the fucking game is a damage race, but especially for that, no good for me. And fun fact, that this is essentially the modern equivalent of the Skirtle, which I said I wasn't, which I'd already talked about, except that one was for clan cons and super underperformed, as opposed to this, which is for like clan wars / leviathans, and also super underperforms. This is, I mean, cyclones have been sort of more of a meta thing, but it was using it in raids, specifically Frontier Defense on Crater, and the name escapes me, but the sandy map with the towers, the encampments on the top of it. There's not a raid for it currently, but in case that one, and was a crab art build. And again, don't really have anything new to do to improve on things with it. I did update it to quote-unquote 19 with the Akilos, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, so that this is the, talked about it last time, but essentially the tow equivalent of my Clan Con / Uranium build, the single one that I have and use. So maybe poke around with it again in the future a little bit, but it's just a variant of what I already have. It's a tow, it's a higher power score, and I don't really use it. I have this, which I'm much more interested in, which is more of a team support equivalent, but has issues getting away with things with the Bigfoot wheels, so maybe I'll bastardize the two builds at some point and use the new Uwabaki wheels instead of needing the boosters, and then focus on the stealth aspect. But I do like the Bigfoot for this because it raises the weapon off the ground quite a bit, which lets me tuck a bunch of other modules underneath, and also charges the cheat engine super fast, especially when I'm already going, I'm not currently going, but when I can go 120 kph. This is my current go-to for raids, which I'm waiting for a projectile speed fuse because it feels like way more than 15%, despite that being what it allegedly is. But haven't seen one of those for a bit, and again, don't really run raids, so lamau. There's the backward build. This I talked about again at length in the last one, but essentially just a stealth hover I made for uranium that I didn't end up using, and have made a few variants thereof, which includes the dev one, which I was using for, you know, the Devourer for the trial. And then Helicon variant, which I'm currently using. And there was a couple other variants, but I think I got rid of them. But also includes the build currently in my slot, which I was using for the Blackout event, which is you running only 3 hovers and then 2 Stillwind Swipsy. But I found out that, unfortunately, the Stillwind perk, which allows you to shoot while invisible, still actually causes you to need the full cooldown for the Yeti, as if, you know, you deleted it, even if you use it while it's already cooling down, or rather you manually deactivate it. But it's like, oh, you dealt damage in that time period, you shot a weapon, then yeah, no, you can't. So there goes that idea out the window. But I thought it looked cool and was a 3 hover variant. It's pretty tight, like pretty compact as far as builds go. Did want to try it in uranium, but yeah, haven't done that. But those are, yeah, another variant of those. This is my submission of the apparently 67 Shelby GT500. Not much of a car guy, so I couldn't say with any degree of certainty, but that's what Faley said it was, so that's what I'm going to run with. Yeah, I thought I did a pretty damn good job overall for the submission. They haven't posted results yet because he said he kind of got swamped with work, but I did end up buying the deluxe edition for this, but you get that way at the end of the pass, and the event was over, or the contest was over like a week ago, so I couldn't really do anything with the flat top, but I really wanted to have the curved look to the front, and so I kind of just went with this instead, which I thought did pretty decent. We'll see later this week, but I made it actually somewhat viable. So because of that raised hood, I snuck in ammo. I put in the engine car jack, and then of course I just slapped the fucking Mortel on the roof because it worked out energy wise and power score wise, so why not? But yeah, then I used a shit ton of white squares and white sheets, of which you only have 2 in the account, so mostly white squares, and the ski run stickers. That's why I changed the color of the vehicle with the diamond paint, which is a color I really like anyway, to kind of be a close approximation to the ski run. A bunch of other people just used a shit ton of like white squares and lines and whatnot, and that was probably honestly the smarter way to go, but that's not the way I went. So yeah, and then I used eyelashes on the side. It might be obvious at this angle, but I have not parallel lines technically because these are triangles that are thinning out, but I think from the pictures I submitted in the angle and whatnot, it wasn't super obvious, so it should work. So if we pull up the Faley contest thing, so I can actually show my submission for it, which had 214 comments because everybody posted images and then replied to those images with other images, which kind of swamped the thread super quick. So I asked if we could just do gallery links, which is what I did for my submission, which cleaned things up for me a lot. I guess I can just show the entire thread, why not? Zoop. So those are the cars. The Suzuki Jimny, which he specified is yellow, and I searched up, and apparently Suzuki did call this a yellow, but it sure ain't fucking yellow. Yeah, so that was this, and then let's see. People hating on them, I guess. Anyway, let's see other people's submissions. Sirach, as per usual, absolutely phenomenal job. And then Jimny, so yeah, kind of annoying to me that like people didn't really organize these or like try and condense them. So I said I ended up with like 214 friggin' photos. There we go. See, they did one image of each with both sides because they used the bot in the garage. That's clever. I did more images than that though, so that wouldn't have worked for me. Other Jimneys. Yeah, Megas was also quite good. Pretty much everybody who like participates and wins in the Discord contest also did a really good job here. Imagine my shock. So mine, yeah, so the reference image, and then like I said, so this ended up not being as flat as it quote unquote should have been for the reference, but again, I really wanted that curved shape to it, sort of wrap around those front headlights, and then I wanted the items there. So it's like, it's the sort of thing like, what else would I put on for like a flat hood? Like nothing else exists other than that part, which I can't get unless I buy the Elite or the Deluxe Pass, and then also spend like $45 on additional levels. So yeah, and then the other images for it, patriotic flares, which I forgot to show for the preview, on the list for that. So yeah, I think it was a pretty good, I mean, like I looked at that shape, I'm like, dude, that is so the fucking Catalina, like nothing else we have is even close to that shape, but apparently most other people didn't rock with that, so whatever. And then the Jimny, which is further down on my list, but I actually made the motherfucker backwards because the Yokozuna was like almost perfectly matching the shape of the back of it, which I don't have a reference image for because I used the one off of Wikipedia. But in any case, so I made it backwards because I couldn't find a cabin that really captured this sort of flat, tall, but also like shallow front hood. Like I tried with the trucker, tried with the Yokozuna like facing the right way, tried with the basically a bunch of different options. I couldn't find anything that like worked quite right, so I ended up with this, and I'm pretty happy with the result. Like a lot of the other cabins were lower, so some of the other submitters used like humpbacks, the humpback cabin, which I thought was pretty smart, and that was pretty much my go-to. I think it was actually the first person who submitted a build for it. Maybe not that, or they just got voted. There we go. Yeah, so this was one of the like first submissions. I'm like, damn, that was exactly what I was thinking to do. Pretty fucking clever. But I didn't quite like that, and I felt like I needed the hood to be higher up, and the humpback didn't quite line up with that. It would have been partially obscured, so I ended up going with this instead. So I have the fake nose with everything, of course, the lights and the grills and the license plate. And yeah, I think it turned out okay. I didn't really want to make a fake like cabin entirely, but I ended up doing that, and I threw on Tachis underneath, and the rest of the hardware is hidden inside of the quote-unquote cabin. But we don't have a whole lot of 4x3x1 parts that would like fit the window size, but I did try to include the, you know, rain drip catch roof, the black coloring around it, the front windshield. I wasn't super happy about the last item I used, the shape I ended up with, but like again, for 6x3x2, pretty much it was either that or home front, and home front didn't extend all the way to the top. And yeah, again, made it somewhat functional. I knew I wanted to use the Uwabaki wheels because I'm like, those are like going to be the closest equivalent, like rugged looking ones that are also kind of thin. Sort of a sports utility look. And yeah, he used headlights backwards for the rear view mirrors because they were closer to that shape for the, oh shit, I can't even find my own comment again. Probably should have just looked for comments by me rather than in the entire thread, which is talking about being incredibly long. We'll also note I used this is a little tip, again, whether or not anybody actually cares or uses it, who knows, but the flares are a 1x1x1, and they have a pin on the bottom and they have a pin on the back, so they're great for being like low profile connection pips for something that doesn't have connection pips otherwise. So these are again the from the Polar Explorer pack. They're the side mirror-like things, and their connection pip is right here rather than here, so I can't have them quote-unquote the wrong way, even though that's obviously like how it looks and how rear view mirrors look. So I use this as sort of a low profile-ish way to attach things, which I also talked about at the pumpkin. And yeah, I redid the nose a couple of times on this as well, because this piece is like exactly the pole position piece, so I knew I wanted that, I knew I needed that, but I ended up having to get kind of weird spacing around this fender and with the light and whatnot. But that's also part of why I ended up going with it curved, because like, again, I can't really flatten it out without like literally not having another part covering up the internals here, so whatever. Okay, so that is that build, and then also way at the bottom, that build. So I still have them, and I'll probably throw them on exhibition after I clear some of the other builds, just to you know, have them thrown up, save somewhere, at least until the competition's over. Like, technically, he didn't say you needed to put it on exhibition or like make the build or keep it or anything, but I thought they were neat enough, and if they end up being a contest winner, then other people, or even if they don't, they just might be of interest to other people. So that this is the 6K Christmas Hunt version thing, which I hit the wave 15 clear threshold with, but let's see, I don't even know if the leaderboard for it still up. Nope, they wiped it. Same with uranium. Alright, well, that tracks. But anyway, yeah, it is a lot lower. It is only running 2 whirlwinds, and yeah, I think if I had an entire team of these, like solid few attempts, I think I did like 3 runs with one group of people who didn't even have all the parts and they were running their own build, and then 2 runs with another. But in any case, didn't no life the event enough to even get enough crackers to make all the duck treasures great. So I spent like 5 hours spamming blackout yesterday, but build worked extremely well. So the answer was, as per usual, Catalina Whirlwinds. It just was not a high power score version thereof. So there's that. Yeah, this super old, hit by the energy changes, theoretically used again, was using it in medium plastic raids, and I haven't played with it since. Great. This, another uranium build, which has another variant. So this is the one with the Tormentor. Also has a Aegis cloak. And the Chronos cabin. So I talked about it quite a bit in earlier streams. But I also have another variant which is running the Skinner instead of the Tormentor. And that's undermounted because I found the biggest issue is sticking to people, especially since they changed the Harvester's perk to be like you gotta stay connected. So yeah, as per usual, Skinner's a really great way to do that. And we haven't had another 13k uranium for me to try it with the Skinner version, so I've just been sitting on both versions, waiting. My helicarrier couple build, which again is hurt by the mass limit change to the Yokozuna, so waiting for an opportunity to correct that. A rebuild of a Clanmates build, which is, I think theirs is a cohort and 3 Tempests or something for 9k for ClanCon, but I made this specifically as a version to run if we were to have a swarm of dudes protecting Phaley in the CM hunt, but we didn't end up having that happen. And also, like, the world bricks are like super meta the last couple of months, so a bit more unpopular of a build, but in any case, I'd made it before and I'm still holding on to it, so whatever. That experimental triple Helios build, again, energy changes mean I can't really run the power unit and the trombone and 3 Helios with it, with the Thor, but I think it still works with the Odin, but I don't have Helios currently, so can't do that either. Rebuild of same Clanmates build, Rogue Raider 2. This is the Jotun one for, again, ClanCon Uranium. This one works quite a bit better. I didn't have a dedicated Jotun build before this, so I've just been running it in, like, Blackout and events, and sometimes in Uranium or ClanCon if teammates need points. myself. So that talked about another uranium experimental build. Didn't have radar, and was decently fast, was decently tanky, was really good damage, but again, without a buddy to provide radar and or keep flame dogs and stuff off me, wasn't well enough performing for me to keep. But again, hey, if there's another uranium and it ends up going back up to 10k again, whip that back out. Fusion build, energy changes mean that I can theoretically rework it for a third snowfall, but this was built with another person specifically in mind who only had the bootstrap, and again, they stopped playing, so haven't updated it since. The other half of that build has a couple build of the big boy, which is another reverse build, or the forward build with big rams. But again, like, this was for Chase when it came back the first time, like 2 years ago. Haven't really used it since. Other person doesn't play, don't really do raids, don't really do levies, so not much reason to whip it up. But these are currently my highest power score, highest mass, highest durability builds by far, which is probably fairly unsurprising considering their specs. The build I use in ClanCon and will probably continue, and Uranium will probably continue to keep doing so because I keep getting into Master with one-tricking the build. And since it's running the Yongling the right way up, I haven't even been killed by any of the nerfs other than the projectile change one, which did mean I couldn't run the train plow on the front anymore. I had to use the armored nose of the Gasson, but whatever. And then the current battle pass gives me a few new toys to mess around with, new engine, new wheels, potentially, new weapon. So yeah, the entire reason I'm doing the stream is to free up a bunch of blueprint slots so I can do that now that I bought the deluxe version. My current Leviathan build, when I'm not, mucking around with the other experimental ones, are just, doing a shit ton of damage, has 3 trombones, has 3 Akari, what's not to love. Another experimental build is part of Operation Armor, so apparently I'm missing... Apparently I didn't have enough, I didn't keep enough wheels for this as well as not having the machinist, but just basically, hey, what if I had the Avalanche be a massive, thick piece of health? So that's what this is. My double narwhal build, the Harpy, which I was running in 13k uranium as well as in PvP to complete the trial for the narwhals. Haven't touched it since. Another experimental build built for a buddy who's talking about cyclone builds, trying to run them in as a spider in ClanCon, and I'm like, well, there's a bunch on the exhibition, but all those suck, so my attempt at making a better one. And then my artillery build, which I took down from the exhibition literally 2 days ago, so I could rejig it with the energy changes and the mass changes and whatnot, because it's should be a quick enough fix for me, and then and just throw it back up. So yeah, that's all of them that I made as of the year-end. Technically, the Snowman Marathon I did this past week, so I just kind of included the builds for that because I figured it was pertinent, and based off of the drop frames and low push through and possibly the really shitty video that it's still putting up to YouTube as of me not replacing the thermal paste on my computer, on my CPU. And thus still getting super shitty quality. Oh no, it's decent. Okay. I wasn't sure, because last time it was a max of 240 and people were complaining, which also fair. But, yeah, I guess that's not currently a problem. I know it was still complaining about the bitrate a few times, so... quality's... it's not, it's not what I'm seeing the game at in 2K, other than when Xbox loses its shit and does all this. But, whatever, at least this stream is viewable. I guess I can go through the... Discord. I can also show my other submissions for the contest stuff, because... why not? I will say there was also a bunch of drama in the marathon help chat and a bunch of comments deleted. So if you missed that, unfortunately, I can't bring that back from the dead. Anyway, so the Annihilator build, which won for the make a large weapon, and also had people, I mean, there's some meta drama going on, but where is it? Yeah, so drama with these people, thus the blocks and other stuff, and then wondering why my thing, which they said was a projectile, which obviously isn't, was discounted. Anyway, this I did not literally last minute, like there's 4 hours until this contest ended, but I'd meant to do a little bit more with it and ended up not getting to it because I was procrastinating, and then I was like, oh shit, it ends in 6 hours, so hammered out a pretty quick shitty one for the postcard challenge. The snowman one, my meme for the meme thing, I thought again was pretty good. I mean, it's the same thing I've said to other people who like complain about like, oh, these are rigged and the same people keep winning and my thing was so good and wasn't picked. It's like, for the most part, like you're gonna have some people who are like actively doing throw picks, like where is it? There was a lot of these were really good, I will say, but they may have actually deleted it, which should be funny. No, there it is. Yeah, people were like, yeah, I'm contributing to the contest and therefore I'll get my participation point, but like you're not going to be winning anything for fucking sure. And likewise, it was, yeah, Lexi with the flock, and they're like, why is my contest submission considered invalid? And they're like, this is a build a weapon contest and you put 2 parts together and some stickers. So they totally discounted that. But yeah, so other than like the throw picks, like throw submissions, or like the obviously barely trying or troll, like there's some people who did some decided to make some political statements with their art submissions, and those got deleted pretty quickly. But like short of that, like everybody's going to try. People aren't going to do, like they're not going to build, sorry, let me rephrase, if you're going to build for a contest and actually try, like you're going to try really hard. You're not going to do this and be like, oh, I tried my hardest, you know? Like there's varying degrees of, you know, people's like vision and art and what parts they have available and how they see the part rather than how the part maybe actually is. But like a lot of people are going to be doing these, and they're going to be doing a really damn good job because they're also trying to win the competition. So like if you get passed over because people did other better submissions, then like that totally makes sense. And when you look at the amount of submissions, like when you have literal, I think this one, the postcard competition, was close to 100 entries just by itself, never mind the other competitions. Like, yeah, your chances to win are not going to be great. And some people who consistently build really good are going to be winning quite a few. But in any case, yeah, I made it my meme for this, which is talking about how they absolutely showered us with packs over the season. But, yeah, my only winning one was the Annihilator one, in any case. Which I guess is arguably good because it's the one I put the most time into. Like, the contest opened at, like, 3 a.m. And I'm like, oh, I'll spend a couple hours and make this. And it was, like, fucking 9 a.m. when I submitted it. 8 a.m., you know. And then, yeah, the greeting one. I liked how they actually made it, like, a letter for that one. But yeah, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of submissions. But those are mine. I'd also wanted specifically, I don't need the Centenarian portrait. I already have multiple Royal trophy. So I wanted the Evergreen hologram, which I still don't know what it is. I don't think any of the winners have gotten it or posted it yet. And I wanted the Snowy Eye, i.e. the new decor parts. And I didn't win either of those. But I wanted the Centenarian portrait, and then due to the placement, I ended up winning the Holy Motors pack, which is kind of funny because I was one of the, like, 5 people on console who actually already had the pack from the contest marathon, like, a year and a half ago. Well, I guess almost 2 years ago now. And I'm like, well, I don't need it again. Like, what do I do? And they're like, oh, we'll just re-give you the rewards we can, which is like a untradeable RP, 2 adventures, like whatever. But Yeah, I mean, you know, be how it normally do. You know, the stuff you want to win is not the stuff that you win. But I mean, whatever. Contests at least were decent enough. People were able to get full points. We didn't have any confusion or controversy with the which of these statements is false or true, or with the what does this emoji mean. So at least there's that. Can't say that about the Halloween contest. But yeah, I think that's everything I want to go in the stream. Well, I see other people in the voice chat, so I can go see what they're up to too. Excellent, great.